Good afternoon, everyone. I am Maura Nachtergaele. As introduced by Nathalie, I'm the co-founder and CEO of Payflip. Payflip is an HR tech startup that is basically all about salaries. But I had to make one promise joining the stage on Love Tomorrow, and that's not talking about salaries. So I'm not going to talk about salaries, but I'm going to enter in my story with a bit of an uncomfortable truth that we developed by talking to many HR leaders. We've discovered basically that HR in itself, as we know it on today, is broken. What does that mean? HR is broken. It's not that it's not important, not at all, but it's that if I talk to HR managers, they tell me my job is basically managing risks and putting out fires. And that is a bit sad. I mean, if HR is all about paperwork, it's all about processes, it's all about policies, where is the people in HR? And that's hopefully why you're all here. You've all been part of an HR policy of a company. So whether you're a CEO, a business leader, an HR leader, I hope this presentation makes sense if I tell you that HR, as it is now, is broken. We basically want to mirror HR towards the big challenges that are coming up. I don't know if my microphone is doing what it has to do, but I need to, okay, adjust it. Thanks for the little sign from the audience. No, basically HR broken, as I said before, a lot about operations, a lot about paperwork, but where's the strategic part of HR? An HR manager, in my ID, should be occupied with the question, how do we build a workplace of tomorrow? But what you see that they're overloaded with operational stuff and that they're basically, if they do have time to talk strategic stuff, they are considered as part of a cost center. HR is often seen as a cost. And costs, they can report to the CFO, but they don't manage to get attention by the CEO. If HR is not on fire, there is often not a CEO that cares too much about HR, unless you're at a concert of Coldplay, of course. That's why I think with the challenges that I've pointed out here on the slide, being the war for talent, the fact that basically companies are applying with employees instead of the other way around. You have bore-outs, you have burnouts, you have a new generation that comes with new expectations on the work floor. You have AI. What is work actually the moment that you can split meaningful work versus work that can be automated? These are all not trends, I would say, but forces that are symptoms of a new world in HR. And that's why I wanted to share with you some, I think, necessary movements that HR teams should consider when organizing their day-to-day. I have one principle, and that's the first one of the slides, from context to control, that I personally find super, super important at Payflip. And I didn't invent it. I mean, it looks good on the slide, control versus context, but I have it from Netflix. You all know Netflix. They've written an amazing book on their culture. It's as much of a bestseller as Ingrid's book that she has written last year. But Netflix has a book that says no rules, rules. And they have one principle. We hire super clever people, and we trust that people, that if you give them context, they will get the work done. There is no micromanage. There is just trust that positive, good, informed decisions will be taken if you provide context to people. That's something that I will repeat much more when I tell the story of Payflip, because we borrowed it from Netflix, and that's basically the best thing that we could do when building our culture. Second observation that I see is going in the right direction, and definitely in the Belgian highly developed KMO landschap, is the fact that we should stop treating, in my opinion, companies like families. You borrow like language from the private atmosphere into the professional atmosphere. If you ask me, miserie, that's not gonna work. Family is all about unconditional love, unconditional trust. It's all about loyalty. It's less about performance. And I'm not saying that a company should be solely about performance. It's not about that. But it's the fact that you won't fire your uncle if he had made a bad joke on the Christmas dinner. I mean, if people are doing their job not in a way that they're used to do, we need to basically pull them back and we need to say it stops here or you need to change stuff. And I have a bit of a personal anecdote on that. It has been a long time ago, but before founding Payflip and in my younger years, I was a gymnast. I jumped, I don't know how to say it in English, I jumped the trampoline. Um, and I had a very good relationship with my coach, basically. I was not a stellar gymnast. You shouldn't think that I was Aagje van Wallenham, not at all. But my coach said really early on in my trainings, like, Maura, I see it in you. You aspire to hard work. You're a hard worker, you have a certain mindset. You might not end up in the Olympic Games, but we can work with you. And I always remember that atmosphere that he basically built for me. The fact that there was such a position of trust that when he gave me feedback, I never took it personally. It was safe. It was never meant to hurt me. It was just to make me thrive and to really work with that feedback. And that's a bit of an anecdote that I sometimes tell with the people at Payflip, that I really want them to feel the same way at Payflip. Being very feedback driven, never take it personal, don't confuse family with a company. We're a sports team and we should behave like that. And that's why I also think that if you talk about HR and you start building on bigger principles than just paperwork, policies, and processes, you think that HR as like human resources, it doesn't fit me. I actually don't like to talk about HR. It's like people that are commodities, that are like machines that should be used. Whereas I rather feel that we all work in an organization to be engaged, to feel motivated, to be inspired, to develop yourself. Why should we still see that as a certain human capital of resource? I basically want to champion to make it more about people leadership than about the very administrative and very formal part about HR. So if you ask me, what should people leaders within 5 years say that their job is? I hope that they will say it's about building an employee experience. And think about it. An employee experience is actually something that is as important, in my view, as if you would have a customer experience. I actually always explain it like that. And I think my friends of SmartFin will agree there. A company is building 3 products. You have first that financial product. I mean, you invest in a company, you put a lot of hard work in it. There is some return, hopefully, to achieve. That's product number 1. Product number 2 is basically your core product of your service. The one that you develop with your client in mind. Product number 3 is basically the employee experience. It's the employee product that you build because people, they do sign up. I have a beautiful image on that. There is a funnel that is very alike with product. People tap in on your marketing, which is basically employer branding. People get engaged in a recruitment process, which is very similar to a sales process. They get an offer. It's like signing a fee quote or not signing a fee quote. And then it's about making that experience something that is a win-win for both. If it's not a win-win for both, the relationship will get end. And ending is like churning a customer. So basically, employment for me is like monthly subscriptions. Every employee signs up every month, and you just need to make sure that they're still getting warm about what you're doing. So that's what I mean with an employee experience. And that's what I also think that HR managers should do. If you have churning customers or churning employees the whole time, it costs the business a lot of money. So if you think about it, every time that you're doing all those work in terms of paper, administration, and you cannot work strategically, your product will basically become weaker and weaker. So that's a bit the crux of the presentation, that I want to tag employee experience and I want to apply some principles on product management on that. I don't know if there are other people in technology in the room, I cannot say, in the festival. But Payflip is a SaaS product, is a software company. And we have product managers that basically handle certain principles to make products. It's very burdensome to make products, so you better be right from the first time. What is, for example, a principle that our product people are dying for is understanding your customer. In this case, understanding your employee. Do you actually talk to your employee? Do you know if they are actually proud to work for you? That is super important. Understand your people just as much as you understand your customer. Second principle that I want to highlight, and that's coming from product management, is agility. Basically, a very fancy translation of being flexible. Don't think that perfection is the end goal. Rather, think about iterating, think about progressing, but don't think that you should build that one thing that is perfect from the start. And if we apply both the principles of listening carefully and understanding your people, and be agile and launch all of a sudden with 3, 4 people a new people product, why not? And I'm also not a person from the fluffy talk. I don't know if you've experienced that until now. I find it always a bit awkward to talk too fluffy. So what I propose that I do is make it very concrete with an example of Payflip. We have some certain testaments of our employee product that I want to present to you. Not to sell Payflip, not at all, but just to inspire you as a person, part of an HR policy, maybe your HR manager to do something alike. And one of those testaments to our culture, to our employee product, is what else? Our own salary story. We have a bit of an obligation, being a salary company, to eat our own dog food, and we wanted to champion a new way of doing salaries in Belgium. So we said, look, we got to build a salary policy that has a super strong story and that is incredibly transparent. I can even show you here on the slide. And it's immediately conveyed to candidates. Candidates immediately see in the employee experience of Payflip, like, whoa, they have thought about that. They prove to be transparent. It's not only a value on the wall, but they are actually transparent. There is a story to tell as of the first moment that if you apply at Payflip, that you have the opportunity in your technical interview to prove yourself as part of one of the levels that is set out on the slide, on the left-hand side. It's within your ownership, another cultural value of Payflip, to prove that you belong in the one or in the other level. So you're basically in the driver's seat to influence your own salary. That is a very strong message that you give. Definitely, if we also explain to them that this same salary grid is taken up every 6 months, the moment that we do performance reviews. So if people think that they actually outgrew their level because they're increasing their impact, they can always make their case and can be promoted to another level. I think that's a message where I got feedback, and feedback is important in product building, as I said before, that people say, wow. And I love that. Honestly, I love that. There has been a lot of work put into that system. It's a lot of iteration, it's a lot of maintenance, but people really appreciate it the moment that you come up with that salary transparent story. Another testament, or basically what works in the employee product of Payflip, is a hyper-fast onboarding. You should think about it. You had that first really nice salary story. We explained you the whole thing. We gave you an offer. People also, by the way, don't really negotiate because they don't want to screw up the whole system, which is also a nice thing of it. And then the onboarding starts. And the onboarding goes on in the same pace as the strong story that we did with our salary. How does the onboarding look like? I made a screenshot. I don't know if it appears well in the sunlight, but we built basically an onboarding board. We do that in Notion, and it covers immediately all the to-dos of the first 4 weeks of an employee, connected to then a 1-month goal, a 2-month goal, a 4-month goal. So they basically are self-steering. It's not that I say to them from 9 to 11, you should do that, and then from 3 to 4, you should do that. They're all tickets and they organize it themselves. And those tickets could be me having myself recorded about our stock option system, my co-founder Philippe that is explaining how the product has evolved. And if you see on the slide, it's even and it's a funny video, but it's a video of Philippe and me pitching Payflip 6 years ago, the day actually before we needed to go to KBC started. If I see myself pitching with a crop top. I think that is not the road to take anymore. But just that they see that they've been providing a lot of context, that they are basically within a month not newbies anymore, but that we give them the full story from the start. A third testament to our Payflip employee experience is the fact that we provide a personal assistant to everyone. And I'm very much aware that statement was probably way more flashy if I have said it 2 years ago, because everyone knows now that I'm talking about HR. But just think about it. The fact that we have such a transparent culture, the fact that to provide context to people, that famous Netflix principle, that we document everything, that we do everything in written, that there is an opportunity for HR the moment, and it is like that now, that we can put a layer on top of all the tools that we use. And believe me, we're using a lot of tools. We're using HubSpot, Notion, Intercom, Linear, all the fancy tools that a product company is using. There is so much information documented in there. The moment that we can leverage HR and put a layer on top of that, the name of that layer in our case is Dust, everyone has its own personal assistant. To the extent that we even mockingly say to each other, the moment someone asks a question, just ask Dust. And I did as well. I did it last week. I explained to Dust that I was doing a keynote on Love Tomorrow, and I had heard in the corridors of Payflip that we were talking to the HR manager of Tomorrowland to sell Payflip to them. Not doing the deal, I have nothing to do with it, but it could happen that I bump now into the HR manager of Tomorrowland. If that person is here, can always wave. But the fact that I can ask Dust what the updates are collected by the documentation of all my colleagues is pure gold. It saves me so much time having my personal assistant, and I've heard so much good feedback of people on that personal assistant that I think, why not? Why not leveraging that more and making Dust that go-to source, not reducing a colleague's time, but just being self-steering via that assistant? Therefore, and I'm going to list only the 3 of them. There don't need to be more of that. I can always elaborate if you feel like. But that's why I want to repeatedly make my point. If you build a company and you're doing HR, build it for your people. Don't build it for the process or for the compliance or for the administration or just to be in line with compliance. I truly believe that HR soon will be about building an employee product just as you build your customer product. Your people are basically your users. Ask feedback to them, make sure that they're into the story, and make HR back again people. So voilà.
Thank you, Maura, for sharing your inspiring story. Now, also a couple of questions for you.
Tell me.
Because you told me when we were talking next to the stage that Payflip originated because you had a challenge, a problem you saw, and you wanted to act upon it. But it's one thing to have an idea, but when did you actually have like the aha moment, like, yeah, we're onto something and we can actually make this a scalable business?
I had it myself when I just repeatedly heard HR managers rephrasing the problem that we heard the day before. If 100 people in a row, if you're talking to 100 people and 95 of them are conveying the same message, then you know that you're up to something, basically. So it was not really for me that first deal or that first funding round. It's rather hearing the HR world saying what Payflip does might matter.
And seeing that the problem solution fit, you pointed out that that's exactly what they were looking for.
Exactly, exactly.
You're also talking about your product market fit, and nowadays you've already validated your product market fit with Payflip, so it's time for the next step. And you were saying you're already exploring a couple of add-ons. Could you already disclose about some of the projects you're working on, or is it still confidential?
It is confidential, but I'm not good with confidentiality. So
we love that, Maura. We love that.
No, I think we broke into the salary market in a very specific product. It's the product, if people would be aware, on Cafetaria Plan. And I think that was super nice to experience payroll from an employer point of view and payroll from an employee point of view. But diving deeper into the topic, you see that it's actually a stagnated market. We're talking about payroll that is so cost heavy, that is so labor heavy. We're talking about meal vouchers that are still the same solutions as 15 years before. So what Payflip is doing or aims to do is really touch upon every salary component that we have in Belgium and Payflipify it a bit. So that's a bit
Okay.
cryptic, but you can see where we're going.
Payflipify it. Let's
Yeah.
remember that word. Now, maybe one advice that you could give to the young entrepreneurs amongst us, because I've met a lot of people who are at the stage right now who have ideas of themselves and they can use a little push or a little good word of advice from someone who's been through it all. So, what would you tell them?
Oh, I think what works really well with me is just not aim for perfection. I was a lawyer before, so I have it a bit in my DNA to be perfectionistic, but that's basically what kills you in business. Rather iterating and celebrating progress than only celebrating when it's perfect, because it's never going to be perfect. So that's a bit what I would tell to young entrepreneurs.
Okay, so lean startup all the way. Thank
Yes.
you so much. Maura Nachtergaele from Payflip.